everyone? It's Captain Kyle Smith, and this week I sat down for a morning meeting with Anderson attorney and senior tax advisor Eliot Thomas. Eliot outlines all the reasons you need to find someone to help you not only prepare your taxes, but also to help you plan a strategy to keep those tax obligations to a minimum. Hope you guys enjoy it.
All right. Hey, Eliot, welcome to the bullpen. Thanks for meeting me.
Thanks. Great to be here. I am Eliot Thomas. I'm a tax advisor with Anderson Advisors, so I definitely work in the tax area. We have other professionals that work in different areas, such as estate planning and legal and things of that nature, but I do the world of tax.
Yeah, no, it's great to meet you here virtually. I understand this is a very busy time of the year for you guys. How has things sort of changed for you during the pandemic with your line of work?
Absolutely. I would say it started off right away with the CARES Act. That was a major change in how a lot of taxation issues were handled as far as a speedy response to try and get cash out there available to folks, especially with the retirement plans and things of that nature. So we had quite a lot of activity in that area, even up till today. I believe it was the last day one part of it was available. So I'd say COVID definitely had some play on that. Obviously, everyone's businesses are affected. I don't know anybody who hasn't been affected by COVID. And I think it really just stresses that much more why we don't want to think about it right now, proper tax planning.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been just a whirlwind last 9 months or something. And I feel like we're slowly starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. A lot of our folks are starting to get the vaccine. I'm scheduled to get it soon here as well. So we're starting to finally feel like we're making a push towards, some sort of rectifying this whole thing. And I think everybody's pretty ready for that. Now, you mentioned the CARES Act. There was some stimulus that was created out of that, where folks got a stimulus check. There's another one reported to be on the way for folks. Now, with that one, Eliot, would they have to report that as income for 2020 or 2021, or does it depend on when they actually get it?
It will depend. First of all, it's usually not income. It's not taxable, I believe, is how they're handling it right now. Now, they could change that on the new one. We just have to wait and see. There is talk that they're going to go back and change how they handled the first one as well. The Congress had one way of handling some of the issues, not just with the CARES Act, but with the PPP loans and the EIDLs that we hear about. They kind of made it very clear, I think, to most of us how they were handling it. Maybe the IRS had a different idea, and there's some discussion about that. And that's for DC to work out, and so there might be some changes on how some of that's going to be handled. But as far as the checks themselves, typically those aren't taxable if you're able to get the stimulus checks.
Okay, well that's fantastic news to hear, because from what I understand, it's going to be about $600 for this next round, and hopefully we won't have to pay taxes on top of that. But before we get too much further into your story, Eliot, you ready to get this first alarm going?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, here we go. A first alarm assignment on the San Diego Fire Department, Eliot, consists of 4 engines and a truck. But here at the Firehouse, I'll ask you 4 questions. You give us 1 piece of advice. You ready?
Absolutely.
All right, so when you're first in on the first alarm, you got to give a size up. And a size up is who you are, where you work, and how long you've been doing it. You mentioned your name is Eliot. You work for Anderson. How long have you been with Anderson?
I've been here probably about 7 years, going on 8. I do, as I said, I work as a tax advisor and have been pretty much for that. I've done other things, more tax preparation, but now I do tax advising, tax planning, structuring, things of that nature all around the world tax. I've been here about 8 years, but probably worked in the legal community. I'm actually a attorney by background, probably about 30 years in some capacity.
Maybe this is a loaded question, but can you quickly explain the difference between a tax advisor and a CPA?
Yes. Now, in our world here at Anderson, a tax advisor is just someone. My job is I don't do tax preparation. I will look at what investments a client has and look at the best ways to use it from a tax advantage, as well as we take other concepts into certainly asset protection and estate planning. They all kind of come together, those 3. But the CPA traditionally is going to be someone who, if they are in the tax realm, that is, they will do more preparation. Maybe they do some bookkeeping and things like that, or they'll call it accounting. Sometimes they get a little we have to call it bookkeeping, but whatever it is, that's usually what you're going to have with your CPA. Now, not all CPAs work in the world of tax. And so in my job here will be just more of tax planning, looking long range. How are we going to save money? Your CPA more often today is about getting that return done. Later on, you can talk to them about ideas to save if you want to, and that's kind of the way taxes are done at this time. Usually, you don't get that sit down time with your CPA or whoever is preparing your returns. It's usually two separate projects. Get the return done, and then if you need any planning or want to talk about ways of saving, you talk about. In Anderson's case, you'll talk with me, or if you do have a CPA, you might speak with that individual.
Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Why is it important for first responders, firefighters, law enforcement, EMTs? Why would it be important for us to have a tax plan in place? Why not just show up, at the end of the year to your tax advisor, your tax preparer, and just hand them a box of receipts? Why not just do that? What's the advantage of having a tax plan in place?
First of all, I have been the recipient of a literal box of receipts before, and so that just never sets well. And actually, it wasn't a box of receipts; it was a large tackle box, and it was full of receipts. And we're human, and you can imagine the excitement to try and start digging through that. So, but one of the reasons why it's important, I think, first of all, taxes are your one of your biggest expenses that you incur all year. Especially, I don't need to tell people in California about that. So we got two aspects. We got the federal and the state. Our clients in New York, they have federal, state, and if they're in the city, borough taxes. In the city. So these are all things. It's your biggest expense. If you have a way to do it better, that behooves you to try and do so. I don't have to tell anybody in your line of work. You folks work very hard for your money. You put up with a lot of dangerous situations. Why not try and protect what you earn from that for all you've put into it? It's the little, maybe the smallest thing that you can do for yourselves for putting yourselves in such harm's way so many times for what you do. So I think it's a way of rewarding yourself in a sense. Also, I would say that later on, we all have, as my boss says, we have a shelf life. It's a way to leave more to your family when you pass on. So real good reasons to have tax planning. And I can give you numerous ways of that you can save on. A lot of it does depend on your investments. If you have straight W-2 income, ordinary job income, we might be limited in our tax planning. But one of the ways we hooked up was through a local fireman who was doing other types of investment. And that's where we have a lot of opportunity to strike and attack the taxes.
That's fantastic to hear. A lot of the folks listening to this, Eliot, will be mainly W-2 employees, but they also have some side income from other investments like real estate or others. So I think they'll be anxious to hear more about that. But, I always hear it's not what you make, it's not how much you make, but it's how much you keep. And what that is referencing is how efficient can you be in your tax planning? How efficient can you be in preparing to keep all that hard-earned money, like you mentioned? But I do have to admit, I'll put my hand up and say, I might have been that person showing up to somebody's office with a box of receipts back in the day, not knowing the first thing about how to be efficient in any of this stuff. But, it's a process. We're all trying to take steps to improve. And if we can just get a little better at that, we'll be able to keep some more of that hard-earned money.
Absolutely. Yeah, no question about it. There are a lot of things, like I said, especially with the investments, where we can cut. There's a lot of deductions people just don't know are there, and we are taught about it in school, and we certainly learn about it in practice, but it's not something that usually the general public's aware of.
Yeah, and really, we should leave it to the experts like yourselves. We wouldn't expect you to come help us put out a fire at somebody's house.
You don't want that.
Yeah, we don't want that, right? You don't want us sorting through all those receipts. You want us to show up hopefully a little more organized than that, so that you as an expert can put this plan in place. Our folks we're type A people, so we always want to solve the problems. But when we get into things like this, we don't know what we don't know, and that's where we can get ourselves into trouble. And kind of along those lines, what are some of the big mistakes you see folks making?
Lack of planning, and it is the big thing. Again, talking about if some of your colleagues here are investing, Take a simple example like stocks. You make $10,000. If you're doing outside of your plan and it's your own side investment gig, you make 10,000 of income. Right now, that's all coming to your 1040. It's going to be taxed. You're in the highest tax, one of the highest tax states, so you're going to have a lot of state tax. You're going to have a lot of federal tax. By doing simple things, by just running it through a different type of entity, there's ways that you can get a good portion, maybe 20% of that back to you tax-free without paying any tax on it. It'll just depend on the amount. We got to crunch numbers, so I can't tell you an average story, but I would say on 10,000, you could probably get at least probably 3,000 and 30% of that back. The numbers go up. It just depends on the type of investment if you do it through a C Corp, you could probably get all 10,000 back without paying any tax at all. So it's not that hard. You just have to know what you're doing.
Oh, that's incredible. I think, God, everybody would be interested in learning more about that to just, like we keep talking about, just being a little more efficient in this stuff. Now, if somebody was interested in sitting down with a tax advisor, what are some things that they should know about that particular person before hiring them?
Well, first of all, the common thing is, hey, let's go find my CPA. What most people don't know is that there's the only licensed position that the IRS recognizes is something called an enrolled agent, or an EA. You don't hear a lot about them. Those are the special forces of tax preparation. That's all they do. A CPA, I've studied for the CPA. I am an attorney by background, but I take the CPA, or try to get the CPA just for my own, practice, if you will. But there's 4 different sections of CPA. It's not all about tax. You learn a very broad range. CPAs are very good at large, areas of specialty that or areas of broad areas, I should say, of work, but they're not all just about tax. An EA, enrolled agent, that's all they do. They go in there and they chop down taxes. So that's the first thing. I wouldn't be drawn just to a CPA. I'd be looking around to see someone who specializes. Besides that, then I'd look, hey, do they work in my area of investment? We work a lot with people in real estate, Bitcoin, stock trading, et cetera, like that. It takes time to learn how to properly meld that for the right type of investment or investor, how they want their tax planning done. So you want to know their experience, if they're used to dealing in that area. We don't do international tax, so make sure that my point to that is that not everybody works in every area of tax. So see if they know the area that's concerned to you. Now, if you just have a straight W-2 and nothing else going on, you can go just about anywhere for that, and so wouldn't be necessary to throw out a lot of money for a return. But once you start doing investing, that's where it starts being specialized.
Okay, yeah, that I was going to ask, is there a threshold for folks to know about where you could sort of graduate from, TurboTax, or you could graduate from H&R Block folks down the road into somebody that provides you a more customized or a more personal approach to tax planning? Is there a number, or is it just when you start getting into investing in more, more complicated stuff?
Well, it's going to depend on probably your I would say your gains, because that's what we're taxing. Gains are what gets taxed. So if we're speaking strictly in the tax front, I would want to have enough tax savings to the techniques I'm paying for to justify it. And in that case, I would say probably, if I had $15,000 to $10,000, or $10,000 to $15,000 of gains, I'm going to do some of the tactics that we do, because I know how to get it to me tax-free. And I know there'll be tax savings, and that's every year on that, as long as they don't change the code drastically or something like that. So it compounds every year, that savings, and that's more savings in your investments or whatever you want to do. So I would say 10 to 15. Some would argue with that, and I can understand that. I'd appreciate their arguments on that. Maybe ask me a little bit more, but it does depend on the nature of the investment too. But I would say anywhere there you can start benefiting. I tell my sister's kids, my nephews and my niece, they can start learning right away, or at least I try and tell their parents to tell them that. And you start early. It's not just about dollar amount, but how early we start. And those investments, and one of our partners, one of my direct partners I work under, Toby Mathis, he is very big about that, has a special program. He'll do a special investing strategies just for children, it's free, just come listen to the ideas and things like that. And so it's not just the dollar amount, it's starting young too. And it's never too late to start either. You can start at a later age as well.
Oh, that's cool. There's a lot there. The thing that one of the things of infinite number of reasons why I like real estate is because of the generous tax benefits of it. One being depreciation that I don't think folks know that much about. Just quickly, can you just explain for people listening what depreciation actually is?
Yeah, all depreciation is you being able to deduct the cost of that asset you purchased. You purchased a car, if you're depreciating for business, that is, or you purchase a rental property, you're just depreciating the price tag. Because if I go out and buy a rental house, let's say for $100,000, I'm not allowed to deduct that $100,000. And that usually is a shock to people. They don't understand why not. Well, you do, but you do it over a long period of time, maybe 27 and a half years. That 100,000 will be slowly broken out. Now, a dollar of deduction today is worth a lot more than a dollar deduction in 27 years because of inflation. So there's techniques that we can take that allow us to speed up that depreciation under certain conditions. And that's one of them that we work with quite a bit. I don't want to get into technology or technicalities and terminology, I should say, tax terminology too much, but we can speed up that depreciation instead of having it over 27 years, do it maybe in one right now under the way the code's written. And that can be a big chunk. If you buy a $100,000 home, we're usually looking at about 25% or 30% of that price tag immediately as a deduction in the current year under given circumstances. So if you make, let's say, 100,000, and you can deduct 30,000 immediately in 1 year, you have a huge tax savings. Now, yes, that you're going to have less depreciation in future years, but the idea is that you took that $30,000 of cash and invested it in more to create you more wealth and things like that. And done properly, that's the idea, and so you'll come out far ahead.
Yeah, it's beautiful. What you were talking about earlier was something called accelerated depreciation, and that's probably beyond the scope of this show here. But if folks listening are interested, maybe they can reach out to you. We'll provide your contact information there later. One other thing to point out with the depreciation is it's for the structure and the material in it. It's not for the land, so you can't depreciate the land itself, but for the house or the apartment or whatever it is you've invested in. That depreciation is extremely powerful, and I really want people to pay attention to that. Just sort of looking back on what has been a really hectic year with the pandemic and everything else. What are some ways that we can make our tax advisors' life easier, our CPA's life easier? Instead of just showing up with a box of receipts, what are some things that we can do to sort of help you guys help us?
Yeah, organization. No, yeah, and that would be part of it. Instead of showing up with receipts, even just a simple Excel spreadsheet, categorizing your expenses. Most CPAs don't look at receipts. They really don't want to see them. They would just rather see that you prepared a total, and gave it to them backed up by receipts. And they may ask for the copies of it or something like that for their own records or something, or even having it digitally nowadays. I think that's the big thing. Have all your W-2s, all your 1099s, all these tax forms that people send you throughout the year. I got this thing from my broker, not really sure what it does, but I know I give it to my CPA, those type of things. So have them, in a group, and I would make copies of it as well, if you can. And then if you do have other investments, try and, keep track of all your expenses, maybe in an Excel spreadsheet if you're doing a little bit more advanced investing, like having a rental property or something like that.
Yeah, that's perfect. You just made every firefighter listening to this start hyperventilating when you start talking about spreadsheets and busting open Excel and all this other stuff. But he's right, you guys. You need to track this stuff. If it's an Excel spreadsheet, if it's on a piece of paper, if it's somewhere. Show up organized. Be more disciplined than you have been. Or I'm speaking for myself too. I can be more disciplined than I have been. Showing up prepared, right? We would never show up to a scene completely disheveled, not knowing what to do. And the bare minimum you can do to help these folks out here help you is to show up a little more organized than you probably have been. I think that in the past, for me, I never really paid that much attention. I kind of would start getting myself organized maybe 2 weeks before my appointment was. But by that point, it's way too late. You're already in the new year. You've already missed the deadline. Here we are. We're recording this on December 30th. Tomorrow is the drop dead deadline for anything that you want to report for this tax year. Do I have that right?
In the world of tax, nothing is 100% other than you're going to pay. So yes, your primary, you're basically correct. But I have a tax planning appointments all day long up until the last minute, and there are certain things that we can do. Again, it depends on your outside investment, but you're right for the most part. If we're going to make contributions to charities, that needs to be done before the year end. And really, the gig's up at this point. There are some things that we can tweak and work with, and you won't know until you ask. I would say that's one thing. Never be afraid. Even if you've had a problem with the IRS, don't ever be afraid of them. That they are really good. If you reach out to them first, hey, my bad. I think I might be wrong here or something like that. On something, they'll work with you if you're working with them. Where they get really upset, where you've really upset the bear, is if you keep ignoring them and don't answer their letters and things like that. If there's any piece of advice I could, to make your life easier, don't be afraid of them. They're not as everybody portrays. Most of the people I've worked with on the IRS, fantastic people, wonderful to work with, and that's one thing else I would say as far as working with trying to help your CPA. That's kind of the preparation. If you're behind on anything, work with them to work the IRS.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. It's funny too, because you're saying don't be afraid of the IRS. The tax code is written to just outline. It's the government telling the people what they want them to do, right? We want you to invest in these things. We want you to make these investments in real estate and other avenues. These are the things that you have to abide by. But yeah, there's no reason to be scared of anything. Just keep everything on the up and up. Keep everything nice and organized, and there really isn't any reason to be scared. But in the event that you do get audited, the more organized that you are, the more that you can show that everything that you've claimed is legit, the better your life is going to be, and the better everybody's going to be for it. Just looking back now, and while we can't change the past, we can start right here, right now, and change the future. Is there any advice you would give yourself, your 25-year-old self, about either personal finance, investing, tax preparation, or anything else? Anything else? This is your chance to look back and tell the younger version of Eliot some piece of advice.
Yeah, definitely. I would have invested more. I tried to invest at that age and then got away from it. I wasn't disciplined with it. I figured, I'm in school for all this stuff, so I don't need to really worry about that. But if I just made little tweaks here and there, what a difference. Now, but there's no way at that age I would have known about working with entities. I'm just an individual. Why would I need a corporation? Well, I didn't understand at that time they get all the great deductions. But that's a proper thing. We shouldn't hate corporations because they have it, because those deductions help employ a lot of Americans. And so there's a good reason behind these things. I understand people's anger with the code, but there's a lot of good reasons behind a lot of it. And it's meant to help us all and in many regards. So I would tell myself, invest a little bit more and try and reach out and learn more. We just didn't have things like this available at that age for me that we do today. And the ability to talk we are right now in high tech and all that, everything's on the web. So I would, if I could go back to that time, I'd be doing what I do right now.
Yeah, God, the benefit of hindsight, to just start earlier. In every morning meeting I have, Eliot, I ask similar questions, and that comes up all the time, is to start earlier. You can't ever get this time back. So take some of this information that you're hearing here on the FIREhouse or elsewhere on the internet or whatever, and take action, right? It's not enough to just have all the information. You have to go out there and do something about it. But with that in mind, is there a resource that you have at the top of your head, a resource people could use to find out a little bit more about maybe forming a corporation, what the difference between a corporation and an LLC or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can certainly go to our website. We have a wealth of information. We have a YouTube channel, and the partners and some of my colleagues and even I'm on some of them. And we have just a broad range. Like I said, we talked a lot about taxes, but there's really, that works in a component of having good asset protection for your investments, as well as estate planning. And we put all three of those together. So we have videos that cover all of that. And I would recommend, if you want to learn more about any of that, just go to our website. And especially if you're thinking of trying to learn about investing, maybe especially in the area of stocks, like I said, we'll have many things on there. You'll see Toby Mathis's group where he called Infinity Investing. And that is really a great place for people who are just kind of, like, I don't do a lot of this, Elliot. I don't know this stuff. That is the way to begin right there. And Toby will set your mind straight. I tell you what, he's aggressive, and he'll just focus you in about these important aspects, and you'll walk out so much more. The common comment that I hear on my calls and things like that is, I feel much more in control of my life, more empowered, because it's knowledge. And once you learn that, that's what I'd recommend. Start getting into those programs. It doesn't take a lot of time, and it's well worth it.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll link to all that stuff in the show notes. But I think with that, Ellen, you got knocked down your first alarm.
All right.
Right on. So, hey, if anybody's looking to learn more about you or Anderson in general, where could they find you?
AndersonAdvisors.com, and or my email address, ethomas, THOMAS, at AndersonAdvisors.com. And you can find us on there. We're on the web. We're not hiding. We're going out there. We're attacking tax.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, I'll link to all that stuff in the show notes. God, this has just been you're a wealth of information. I can't thank you enough for squeezing us in here at the end of the year. I know it's been a crazy year for you and for everybody. And just really appreciate your time today, Eliot.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. And I thank you all for all that you do. It's one of those things that you guys are important when needed. And I've been there myself. I've had first responders that have helped me out of a jam more than once. And I'm so gratefully thankful and just happy I could give back a little bit.
Well, it's our pleasure. I guarantee you that. Well, with that, I'm going to let you go here. I want to wish you a happy new year. And thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Hey, thanks again to Eliot for meeting me here in the bullpen. Man, if you're interested in organizing your business in a more efficient way, if you're interested in preparing your taxes in a more efficient way, something that you've probably been putting off, knowing that it's something that you really do need to do, reach out and contact Eliot. He'll set you on the right path. If you'd like to learn more about him, you can find him on his email at ethomas@andersonadvisors.com. That's ethomas@andersonadvisors.com. If you'd like to learn more about us, we're on Facebook at The FIREhouse. That's f.i.r.ehouse. On Instagram, the _fire_house. On LinkedIn, The FIREhouse Investors, or any place you listen to podcasts. If you learned something today and you'd like to hear more, please like, share, and subscribe. But no matter what you do, take this information, go out there, and get some. Station F.